Okay, today we're going to be taking a look at 5 awesome JDM watches. That's Japan Domestic Model. So these are watches that were released in Japan but were not made available to the rest of the world. So they can be kind of hard to get your hands on, but I'm also going to show you how you can get these even if you are outside of Japan. Welcome to the March 2022 Watch of the Month Club video. Hey guys, welcome back to Just a Watch. My name is Dave. I live in Japan and I love to collect affordable watches. And there are actually a lot of great affordable watches here in Japan that aren't readily available to other places in the world. Japan is home to some of the best watch manufacturers in the world, brands like Seiko and Casio, Citizen and Orient. And while these brands do produce a lot of watches that they make available worldwide, they also make quite a few watches that they only release in Japan. Now that hasn't stopped watch enthusiasts from other parts of the world from getting their hands on these watches. It's just often a little bit more difficult, and you may not always be able to get your warranty honored outside of Japan on these watches. Now, being a watch enthusiast and living here in Japan, I'm always on the lookout for a bargain, and so I've rounded up 5 JDM watches that I have in here for review. Now, for me here in Japan, I was easily able to find all of these for well under $350 a piece. Typically, if you're going to be buying these outside of Japan, there's going to be a little bit of a markup from the various sellers that ship internationally, but even with that, you can still get all of these watches, I think, for under $350 each. Now, if you don't live in Japan and you're looking for a place to get your hands on these watches, one place that you can check out is Discovery Japan Mall. They helped me out with this video by giving me 2 of the watches that I'm going to be showing you. Basically, they connect people outside Japan with products and sellers here in Japan. They provide a nice, seamless transaction experience. You order direct from them and then you'll get your product shipped over to you. Their prices are typically a little bit above what you would pay if you were actually in Japan and buying, but still very reasonable. So big thanks to them for helping me out with this video. Other than the watches that they sent over, they didn't provide any compensation for this, but I will be leaving links to their site down below if you're interested in purchasing any of the watches that we're going to be looking at today. You can also check out my website at justthewatch.com. Occasionally I have a couple of JDM watches for sale, so it's worth having a look. All right, with that said, let's jump into the watches that we're going to take a look at today. Now, the first one I want to show you guys is probably my favorite of the 5, and that's the Casio Lineage LIW M700D-A1JF. I always look to get suggestions from you guys when I build this list. So later on in the video, I'll talk about what next month's category is going to be so you can start suggesting me watches to look for the next video. But a lot of you guys this time were telling me to look at Casio Lineage watches, and some people wanted to see Oceanus watches. These are both kind of premium lines that Casio offers. The Oceanus is kind of their super high end, and I wasn't able to find any of those for under $350. However, this Casio Lineage is basically like a Casio Oceanus Lite in my opinion. It has almost an identical feature set to a lot of the Oceanus watches without quite as high a level of finishing or build quality. But let's take a look at it. In many ways, the Casio Lineage LIW M700D is the ultimate quartz watch. The features that this thing packs in at its around $200 price range is actually really insane. Like, if I had a wish list of every feature I would want on my wrist in a wristwatch, this thing has it. It's got a dual time display on the main time. It features world time, so you can check the time in different time zones whenever you want. It features a stopwatch, a countdown timer, an alarm, 100 meters of water resistance, a sapphire crystal, atomic timekeeping, and solar-powered quartz movement. So this thing will never need a battery change, and if you live in a country that has the atomic radio transmitters, it will always be perfectly accurate. And I've never seen a feature set like this packed into an analog watch. You know, I've seen stuff like this on digital watches, but to put this many functions into an analog watch and have it still be legible and clutter-free, Casio really did an amazing job on this design. The dial makes use of only 3 subdials to display all of this information. As you switch through the various modes, the watch automatically reconfigures itself, repurposing the subdials and the second hand and even the main hour and minute hands to be used for the various functions that you'll be accessing. It's just so cool to see the watch kind of change everything around, and I love the second hand implementation in particular because the second hand is used for many different functions of the watch. It's used as an indicator. It's used obviously for the stopwatch and the countdown timer. Its movements are crisp, responsive, and precise. It nails every single second marker perfectly. And when you get into the countdown timer mode, the second hand will actually start running backwards to indicate that it's counting down. It's just such a cool thing to see that happening. This watch really does make the best use of quartz technology. There's just no way anybody could make a mechanical watch that has this many complications packed into a package this size and sell it for around $200. And on top of all of that, there's a lot of really great design cues here. I love the sunburst gray dial. It has these kind of floating hour indexes that hover above the dial. They kind of jut out from a higher part of the chapter ring. The hands all feature a white coating, which gives it great legibility against that gray dial. And overall, the watch is pretty comfortable. The bracelet is decent with solid links, solid end links, including female end links. And while the finishing isn't anything special, it is very nice for the price. The only really drawbacks to this watch that I found is that it does take a while to figure out how to use everything, and there is some lag there. You know, it takes a couple of seconds for the subdials to sort of reconfigure themselves for each mode, so you're going to be waiting more often than you would on like a digital watch or a smart watch. One final drawback is that the clasp only features 2 micro adjusts, and for me, 3 is really the minimum that I'd like to see for being able to get a good fit and having some flexibility to adjust with wrist size changes. But if you want something with a lot more versatility that you can wear a little bit more dressed up than you would with a digital watch and still maintain all of that functionality and get the sapphire crystal and the 100 meters of water resistance, this thing is really amazing and probably my favorite watch of the 5 that we're featuring in this video. All right, next I want to take a look at the Seiko SARV001. This is a model that has been available for many years from Seiko, however, only here in Japan, so I haven't seen it talked about very much outside of Japan. It's an automatic watch with 100 meters of water resistance, pretty decent bracelet, and yeah, these ones you can find for easily under $200 all the time. Let's take a look at it. The SARV001 is kind of like a cheaper, gigantic SARV035. SARV035 and 033 were some of Seiko's most popular watches that they discontinued. They were very elegant watches that could totally pass for a dress watch, and yet they had 100 meters of water resistance, decent lume, good automatic movement, so they were totally passable as a sports watch as well. This SARV001 likewise has 100 meters of water resistance. It does have loomed hands and markers, Seiko 4R36 automatic movement. But while the SARV035 came in at 38 millimeters, the SARV001 comes in at 42 millimeters, which is pretty large for this style of watch. It still retains a lot of the dress watch stylings, although it is a little bit more sporty with the larger hour markers and the detailed chapter ring with 60-second or minute markings going around the outer edge of the dial. Even still, this is a watch that's probably going to be reserved more for people with larger wrists. And while I can get away with wearing this no problem on my 7¼ inch wrist, it doesn't overhang or anything like that. With the trend in watch sizes kind of shrinking, I've sort of gotten used to having smaller watches on my wrist. I almost did a double take when I first took this one out of the box because, yeah, it looks very large. But that said, I still think this is one of the best deals you can get out of Seiko. You can find these well under $200 very easily. And on this white dial version, the dial actually has kind of a little bit of a creaminess to it. It's not like a pure white or a silver. A really beautiful sunburst finish. And one of the advantages to this being a larger watch is it allows them to fit in the 4R36 movement, which has the day and date complication. And if you're getting a JDM watch, getting one with a day-date complication so that you can get that kanji date is one of the coolest things, and I really love that about this. I think it's just such a cool and classy element that really points to Japan's watch heritage. Now, this is definitely one of Seiko's affordable watches, so it does come with some compromises. You are getting a mineral crystal, or a hardlex crystal, I guess in this case. The bracelet does feature solid links, which did not pull any hairs on my arm and was very comfortable to wear. However, the end links are hollow end links, and they're a little bit awkwardly sized. They're actually shorter than the lugs, which is kind of weird. However, when you combine that with the fact that it's also female end links, it does allow the bracelet to actually drop down below the edge of the lugs, which could actually help it wear a little bit better on smaller wrists. Finally, the lume was a little bit disappointing. It's definitely good for like a dress watch, but given the size of the lume plots on the hour markers and Seiko's reputation for lume, I had expected it to be a lot better than this. For a sports watch, I would say it's just about average. Still, all in all, this is one of the best value Seiko watches you can find out there, particularly for guys who are looking for a larger watch and maybe want something a little bit more elegant than the Seiko 5 Sports line. All right, before we go to the next watch, quick plug for my t-shirt shop. You go to justthewatch.com, get this shirt and a lot of other cool watch themed shirts. Have long sleeve t-shirts, short sleeve t-shirts, hoodies, all kinds of stuff. So do me a favor, support the channel, check it out. Okay, next we're going to take a look at something from Citizen. This is one of their Eco Drive chronographs, so it's a solar powered chronograph. It's a Panda dial, it looks great, and it's pretty well spec'd. And you can find this one for under $250. Let's take a look. So I came across this Citizen CA0450-57A around the same time I was looking at the Seiko Speed Timer, and I feel like this just makes a great affordable alternative to it. Like the Speed Timer, this is a compact solar-powered chronograph that also features a sapphire crystal. The large chronograph second hand sweeps smoothly, allowing you to track timings to an accuracy of 1/5 of a second. But unlike the Speed Timer, this one's not going to draw any immediate comparisons to the Rolex Daytona. You still get that cool Panda color scheme, but the subdial registers are aligned sort of vertically on the left side of the watch, and the tachometer is housed on a chapter ring rather than on a bezel. One thing that did kind of throw me off is that this is a silver dial watch. In the product shots, it looked like it might be a white dial watch, but it's definitely a sunburst silver. The watch is really well built and really well finished. In fact, I think I like the case finishing on this one better than the Seiko Speed Timer. It's got this really kind of wide bevel on it that's done in high polish that contrasts well with the brushing on the other surfaces of the case. The bracelet is kind of interesting with sort of this faux beads of rice styling. It's not my favorite look for this watch, but it's very well made and features solid end links. However, here the clasp only features 2 micro adjusts and a pressed metal intersection. And if you're not a huge fan of the bracelet, with 20mm lug openings, you have a ton of strap options, and this thing really is a strap monster. But perhaps my favorite feature of this watch is the crystal. This has one of the most beautiful boxed sapphire crystals that I've ever seen. It looks like it rises almost like 2mm above the case, and is just beautifully beveled around the edge to give it a seamless transition into the bezel of the watch. And really, I can't figure out why this watch is priced so cheap. Normally, to get this level of finishing, a sapphire crystal, and a high quality bracelet, Citizen usually is going to be charging you a lot more than the $250 or so that you can pick this one up for. So if you're in the market for a 40mm chronograph, this is definitely one to check out. Okay, before we go on to the next watch, let me tell you guys about next month's Watch of the Month Club video. Next month, we're going to be taking a look at Pilot's watches under $350. So I need your recommendations. What do you think is the best Pilot's watch you can get, or aviation watch that you can get for under $350? Drop me a comment down below. Let me know. I'm going to be looking through those comments and using that to make my selections for next month's video. All right, next we're going over to Orient to look at their King Master diver. This is a reissue from the 1960s. It's kind of a compressor style with 2 crowns, really kind of retro looking one. It's a pretty fun watch. Let's check it out. The Orient King Master is a reissue of a 1960s dive watch that Orient put out, which kind of goes to show how long Orient's been in the business. I think they were founded back in the 1950s. So the fact that they were producing dive watches back in the pioneering days of the dive watch, and the fact that they produced their own in-house movements here in Japan, I think really helps to cement them as one of the best budget watch options out there. And this is a really kind of unique, little bit quirky piece from them. It's a compressor style dive watch. It's not an actual compressor watch. It only has 100 meters of water resistance on it, but it features dual crowns, one to activate the time setting and the other to manipulate the internal bidirectional rotating bezel, which rotates very smoothly with no clicks, but with enough friction that it stays in place pretty well. And if that's not quirky enough for you, this watch also features a fluted bezel, a boxed domed mineral crystal with a cyclops to enlarge the date, a somewhat unusual kind of coppery color scheme on top of a sunburst black dial, and a split day date display with the day being displayed at 9 o'clock and the date being displayed at 3 o'clock. But again, this being a JDM watch, it's really cool to see the day-date implementation, because on the day you do have the option of using either the kanji or English display for the day. Now, while this is a vintage reissue, the movement inside is one of Orient's more modern movements. You do get hacking and hand winding, as well as quick set on both the day and the date. Now, by modern standards, you probably wouldn't classify this as an actual dive watch, more of like a dive style watch. You only get 100 meters of water resistance. There is not a screw down crown. down. This watch also lacks any lume on the second hand or on the bezel. And while the hands have a pretty generous application of lume, for the hour markers you only have these small little lume dots going around kind of the inner part of the dial. So while this watch would be great for swimming or snorkeling, definitely not the kind of thing you would rely on for actual scuba diving. It also features a great bracelet with solid links and solid end links. However, you are limited to only 2 micro adjusts. Pricing on this one is a little bit hard to pin down. It kind of has been fluctuating pretty wildly. I've seen it go on sale for as cheap as around $150, but I've also seen it jump up close to $400. And at the time of this review, you can still find them for under $350 pretty easily, but at that price you could get a lot better spec'd watch from Orient. So unless you're really interested in the fact that this is a reissue and that it's a JDM watch, you might want to shop around or wait and see if this one drops in price again before picking it up at sort of the higher price. I think anywhere up to around $250, this is pretty appealing, as it is a very kind of fun, quirky, unique watch from Orient. All right, finally, I have one more watch from Citizen to look at. This is another EcoDrive GMT from their Promaster line, very reasonably priced. Let's take a look at it. The Citizen BJ7107-83 is part of Citizen's Promaster Land series. This is a GMT watch that features a world time bezel. It has a very sturdy build quality with a screw-down crown and 200 meters of water resistance. This watch also features Citizen's Quartz EcoDrive solar movement, making it a great no-hassle travel watch that will take anything you can throw at it. Now, I absolutely love GMT movements, and this one is a good one. It is what's often referred to as a true GMT, which will allow you to jump the main hour hand at 1 hour increments in order to quickly adjust the main hour hand to your local time while allowing the GMT hand to be set to your home time or to a reference time. It's highly legible with a 24-hour track going around the chapter ring, with the added functionality of a world time bezel, which allows you to do 2 really useful things. First, to see the time in any time zone in the world, all you have to do is line the bezel up with the GMT hand, matching the city on the bezel to whatever time zone your GMT hand is set to. Then all you have to do is find the city on the bezel that you want to see the time in, and you can read the current time in that city on the 24-hour chapter ring. The other thing you can do is calculate what time it will be in a different time zone at some point in the future. For example, if I want to call someone at 9 a.m. tomorrow morning who lives in a different country, and I want to see what time that would be for them, I would use the bezel and line up the city that I'm currently in with 9 a.m. on the chapter ring, and then reference the city that I want to call, and it will tell me what time it would be at 9 a.m. my time in their time. So great functionality for anybody who travels a lot or deals with multiple time zones. Now, in addition to the functionality, the watch also just looks great. I really love the bold Arabic numerals that are painted onto the dial. And the detailed engraved stainless steel bezel with all of the city names on it really looks amazing and definitely feels like it belongs on a much more expensive watch than this one. That bezel is bidirectional and friction based, so it moves smoothly with no clicks. The bracelet is pretty much identical to the one that I have on my Citizen Nighthawk, and it is an excellent bracelet, one of the best stock bracelets that I've seen on any watch. There were just 2 things that kind of disappointed me. One was the lume. It's okay, but not excellent. And the other is the 13.5 millimeter thickness on the case. There seems to be a lot of space between the crystal and the dial, making the dial appear to be really sunk down in there. And I would have liked to have seen it slimmed down a little bit. But again, those 2 minor caveats aside, this is a pretty phenomenal watch for the price. And really, I think one of the best GMT watches you can get under $250 right now. Okay, those are my 5 picks for the best JDM watches under $350. Drop me a comment down below, let me know what your favorite watch was, and while you're there, if you get a chance, also let me know what you think the best pilot's watch under $350 is so that I can prepare next month's video. Links to all of these watches, again, available from Discovery Japan Mall. But that's going to wrap it up for the video today. If you like this content, if you're interested in affordable watches and you want reviews or lists like this, make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. But that'll do it for today. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you later. Bye.